Assalomu alaykum hurmatli do'stlar. Sizlarga va'da qilganimdek, man The Living Museum of New York, ya'ni Nyu-Yorkni Tirik Muzeydamiz. Bu muzey dunyodagi eng katta demak ruhiy kasallar shifoxonasini qoshida ochilgan muzey. Bu yerdagi barcha asarlar ushbu klinikadagi davolanayotgan insonlar tomonidan yaratilgan. Meni to'g'rimda esa bu Doktor Mартон, bu inson mana shu muzeyni direktori. Ruxsatingiz bilan bu insonga bir ikkita savol bermoqchi edim. Hello, good afternoon, Dr. Mартон. How are you?
Hello, I'm all right, thank you.
You know, I read not so much information about that really extraordinary museum, yeah, and I'd like to know about this museum a little bit more because there is no any, exactly information about this museum on the internet, but it's really interesting for our society in the world. Could you please tell the most interesting part of story of this museum, please?
Well, we started this museum 35 years ago, and the most important thing about this museum is that it works. We have been doing it for so many years, and the nice thing is that it is founded on two principles that people don't know about, and it's important for your country also. One is that extreme creativity and mental illness overlap. It's just almost a symptom of mental illness. So whenever you have mentally ill people, if you give them the space to create, they will create incredible things. The second thing that people don't know about mental illness, in fact they know the opposite, is that mentally ill people are nice. So if you gather them in a nice environment, they create a utopian space. And it's inexpensive. There's no staff here. I have up to 100 people coming here. It is a self-run entity. So for countries like Uzbekistan, we just opened up a living museum in Korea. I mean, the Koreans opened it up, but they invited us to go there. Is very important because it's a good key to have inexpensive way of treating people with dignity who have mental illness.
I think it's could be the third principle, is a hope for a better future for that kind of people, because they are really extraordinary. You know why? Because one of the most famous artists, Van Gogh, Michael Rubel, had that kind of sickness, yeah? It was a mental sickness, yeah, as well, but they were one of the most famous painters in the world. That's why I think we shouldn't forget about that kind of extraordinary part of that people. And I hope that in the future we will see some very famous painter from this museum, from this place. I think so. And the second question, could you please tell that kind of, museum, that kind of extraordinary place in another part of this world? You mentioned about the Korea, yeah? But what about other countries? You told about the Azerbaijan or what?
Well, Switzerland started one in Ville. There is a very nice one. The woman used to work here, and then she started it there. And it works really nicely. I mean, it's very Swiss, very clean, very, very typical Swiss. We have one in Holland. That is, again, one of the mental hospitals there gave a building to one of the artists, and they started it, and now it's flourishing just like here. So a second one is opening in Switzerland. The Korean one is an important one because it's a different culture, it's Asia, and they talked about four revolutions. The first one, Pinet, when he took off the chains from the mentally ill. The second one, Freud and Ziggy Jung, talk therapy, and the third one was medication. And now they think that they have the fourth revolution happening based on art, because that's where people with mental illness are particularly creative. So speaking of Azerbaijan, people come here visiting us all the time, and they would like to start one there, And what you need is a good building. Real estate and art are the same business. So you need a good building, and you need some psychiatric help for the artists who come, which is separate from this, because medication is ultimately the solution at this point for people with severe mental illness. I mean, schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, and things like that. But I think that you should start one in Azerbaijan, and you should start one in Uzbekistan also.
Sure.
You know, because it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it works so well.
Yeah. And just one personal question. As I know, you are a doctor, yeah, by your specialty, but now you are a director. What's that? It's a message from your side, or you just wanted to change your profession for what? Could you, if you try to give something new, maybe, or why did you change your profession? Because as I know, you are a doctor.
Well, you know, I worked as a psychologist for many years in all kinds of settings. I was on acute units, I was in geriatrics. I have a lot of experience with people with mental illness. And it's a very tough profession, you know, because they are based on not quite correct paradigms, ultimately. And most of the institutions that deal with mentally ill people have the problem of solving basic existential issues, which is discrimination. Mentally ill people are discriminated against. And to create a space where that issue is addressed and partially solved, and in our case it is solved because everybody has mental illness here,
Yeah,
you know, and
everybody.
the whole place runs because of the patients here. You know, that's a very good principle that I recommend.
Yeah.
So no hierarchies, no... any doctor who says he knows better than
Yeah.
anything is not a good doctor.
Yeah.
You have to be very much into humility.
Yeah.
And art. Art is the way to go.
And the last question. You know, one of the famous politicians in the world, Mahatma Gandhi, once said, "My life is my message." And what's your message for the people who will try to create the museum like that?
Well, do it. For me, it was the solution in many ways because I went from being a not so happy clinician to a very happy manager of artists around me. You know, so go for it, do it. You know, start your own. Yeah.
Okay.
Get a building, get people with mental illness, and start creating art. For many years, we were a no-budget operation here.
Really?
You know, the money is not the issue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, of course, it's always good to have money, but the issue is to have a safe asylum-like place. And you know, in the olden days, asylums had certain advantages that we almost forgot about. You know, but go back to the old ideas of asylums. You know, turn of the century, big reform movement here in the United States. You know, so we need a new reform movement, a fourth revolution.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Marton, thank you very much. It was my pleasure, and thank you very much for your job.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Qadrli do'stlar, mana ko'rdinglar Doktor Martonni juda qiziqarli bo'lgan intervyusini. Ya'ni butun dunyoda mana shunaqangi muzeylarni yaratish kerak. Ya'ni ruhiy kasalliklarga duchor bo'lgan insonlarni unutib qo'ymasligimiz kerak. Ular ham bizni, jamiyatimizni bir qismi va ularga ham imkoniyat berish kerak. Ayniqsa ijod bo'yicha bo'lgan imkoniyatni mana shunaqa muzeylar orqali berishimiz mumkin. Agarda mana shu intervyularim hamda lavhalarim yoqayotgan bo'lsa, kanalimga o'zingizlarni laykinglarni hamda sharhinglarni ayamislardagi umiddaman va sizlarni barcha sharhinglarni mana shu intervyu to'g'risida va mana shu klinikalar hamda mana shu muzey to'g'risidagi fikringlarni men sharhlarda kutib qolaman. Salomat bo'linglar, ko'rishguncha.